On a cold winter night in Tokyo, just one day before the dawn of the new millennium, a horrific crime unfolded inside a quiet suburban home. In the peaceful neighborhood of Setagaya, where families prepared to celebrate the new year, 4 lives were suddenly and brutally extinguished. The Miyazawa family, father Mikio, mother Yasuko, and their 2 young children, Nina and Rei, were murdered in their own house in an act of violence that shocked Japan to its core. What makes this case so haunting is not only the brutality of the killings, but the eerie behavior of the killer. After slaughtering the family, the intruder did not flee. Instead, he stayed inside the house for hours. He ate their food, drank their beverages, even used their computer. He left behind fingerprints, footprints, and DNA, yet somehow managed to vanish without a trace. In the 25 years since, despite one of the largest investigations in Japanese history, no suspect has ever been identified. The Setagaya family murder remains one of Japan's most infamous unsolved mysteries, a puzzle of evidence, horror, and unanswered questions that continues to haunt investigators and citizens alike. Tonight, we'll revisit that winter night, piece together what investigators uncovered, and explore why this crime remains unsolved even to this day. To understand the weight of this tragedy, we first need to know who the Miyazawa family were. Mikio Miyazawa, age 44, worked for Interbrand, a well-known marketing and consulting company. He was described by colleagues as quiet, responsible, and deeply devoted to his family. His wife, Yasuko, 41, was a caring mother who worked part-time as a teacher at a local cram school. Together, they lived a modest but comfortable life in Setagaya, a residential district on the western edge of Tokyo. Their daughter, Nina, was just 8 years old. Bright, cheerful, and full of energy, she enjoyed ballet and loved spending time with her friends. Rei, their 6-year-old son, was quieter and more reserved, perhaps due in part to a speech disability that made communication difficult. But those who knew the family said their household was filled with warmth, laughter, and a sense of closeness. The Miyazawa home stood in a unique location. It was part of a small cluster of houses right next to a public park. In fact, their house directly bordered the park's skateboarding area, separated only by a thin wire fence. While the neighborhood was generally peaceful, some residents had raised concerns about the growing number of young people loitering in the park after dark. The Miyazawas themselves had reportedly discussed moving away due to the noise and disturbances from the skateboarding crowd. Yet nothing could have prepared them, or anyone in the community, for what would happen on the night of December 30th, 2000, a night that would turn an ordinary home into the scene of one of Japan's most baffling unsolved crimes. On the evening of December 30th, 2000, the Miyazawas spent what should have been a typical winter night at home. Yasuko and the children returned earlier from shopping, while Mikio arrived later after finishing work. The family likely had dinner together and prepared for the New Year holiday, unaware that someone was already watching their house. Sometime between 11:30 p.m. and shortly after midnight, an intruder entered the home. Investigators believe the killer climbed a tree in the adjacent park, then scaled the fence and slipped in through a second-floor bathroom window. Once inside, he descended the stairs, where he encountered 6-year-old Rei asleep in his room. The boy was strangled in his bed, likely the first victim. Mikio, hearing noises, rushed to confront the intruder. A violent struggle erupted near the staircase. Mikio was stabbed multiple times with a sashimi knife, his body eventually collapsing on the floor. The killer then turned on Yasuko and Nina, who tried desperately to defend themselves. Both were stabbed repeatedly with such force that the blade of the knife broke. The killer then took another knife from the family's own kitchen to finish the murders. By the time the violence ended, all 4 members of the Miyazawa family lay dead inside their own home. The brutality was shocking. Deep stab wounds, defensive injuries, and overwhelming violence directed even at the children. Yet what truly set this crime apart was not just the savagery of the murders, but what the killer chose to do afterwards. Instead of fleeing, he lingered in the house as though it were his own. This chilling detail would become the key to one of the most perplexing investigations in Japanese criminal history. When Yasuko's mother failed to reach the family by phone the next morning, she became worried. Around 10 a.m. on December 31, she walked to the Miyazawa house, only to discover a scene of unimaginable horror. Police were immediately called, and what they found shocked even seasoned investigators. The crime scene was chaotic, but unusually revealing. The killer had not only left behind the victims, but also an astonishing amount of physical evidence. Blood was splattered across walls and floors. Both the broken sashimi knife and the Miyazawa's own kitchen knife lay at the scene. Even more bizarre, the killer's clothing, shirt, fleece jacket, scarf, and gloves were abandoned inside the house, all soaked in blood. Forensic teams quickly realized the intruder had lingered for hours. Traces showed he ate 4 cups of ice cream from the freezer, drank barley tea, and rummaged through the refrigerator. He logged onto the family's computer at least once around 1 a.m., and again hours later at 10 a.m., just before Yasuko's mother arrived. He also used the toilet without flushing, leaving behind fecal matter that was preserved for DNA testing. Footprints revealed the suspect wore Schlesinger sneakers, size 27 centimeters, a brand not commonly sold in Japan. His clothing traced back to stores in Kanagawa, but some items were manufactured only in limited batches in South Korea. DNA testing suggested a complex ancestry, maternal lineage from East Asia, paternal markers possibly linked to Southeast Asia. In total, police collected over 12,000 pieces of evidence, one of the largest hauls in any Japanese murder case. More than 250,000 officers would be involved in the investigation over the following years. Yet, despite the overwhelming amount of clues, no suspect has ever been identified. The evidence painted a disturbing picture, but it raised more questions than it answered. Who was this man? Why target the Miyazawas? And how could he leave behind so much and still disappear into thin air? Despite the mountain of evidence, the investigation into the Miyazawa murders has never pointed conclusively to a single suspect. Instead, it has given rise to a series of theories, each as troubling as the next. One of the most common theories is that the killer was a random intruder with no personal connection to the family. The choice of entry point, through the bathroom window facing the park, suggests someone who was familiar with the neighborhood, but perhaps not with the Miyazawas themselves. Some investigators believe the killer may have been a drifter, someone living transiently near the skate park behind the house. Another theory points to the killer's clothing and DNA. The unusual mix of Japanese and foreign ancestry, combined with the South Korean manufactured clothing, led to speculation that he could have been of Korean descent or even a U.S. military dependent stationed in Japan. Setagaya is not far from American military bases, and some wondered if the suspect might have ties to the armed forces. Yet the most puzzling element is the behavior after the murders. The killer's comfort inside the house, eating, drinking, browsing the internet, suggests either extreme recklessness or a psychological compulsion. Some profilers suggested he might have been mentally unstable, detached from the reality of his crime. Others believed it indicated he knew he would never be caught. No strong motive has ever been established. There were no signs of robbery, no evidence of personal grudges, and no connections to organized crime. What remains is the terrifying possibility that this was a senseless, motiveless killing carried out by a stranger who simply vanished into the night. Nearly 25 years have passed since that winter night, and the Setagaya murders remain one of Japan's most infamous cold cases. Despite the massive scale of the investigation, over 250,000 officers assigned, thousands of interviews conducted, and countless pieces of evidence collected, the identity of the killer has never been uncovered. Every year, on December 30th, police in Tokyo set up a station near the Miyazawa home, appealing to the public for new information. They release reminders of the killer's DNA profile, his clothing, and the sneakers he wore, hoping someone might finally come forward. The case is still technically open, with a dedicated task force continuing to review the evidence. For the surviving relatives, the loss is immeasurable. Yasuko's mother, who discovered the crime scene, has never stopped seeking justice for her daughter and grandchildren. The case has also left a scar on Japanese society, a chilling reminder that even in one of the world's safest countries, horrific violence can erupt without warning. The Miyazawa home still stands today, abandoned yet preserved as a silent crime scene, an unsettling monument to a crime that refuses to fade into the past. The Setagaya family murders remain one of Japan's darkest mysteries. A family of 4 wiped out in their own home. A killer who lingered as though nothing had happened, and mountains of evidence that point everywhere and nowhere. It is a crime that feels both senseless and calculated, intimate yet random, leaving behind a haunting silence that has lasted for decades. Even today, investigators hope that a single tip, a single memory, or a single new technology could break the case wide open. But until then, the Miyazawa home stands as a frozen moment in time, a reminder of justice delayed and answers denied. What do you think? Was this the work of a drifter, a foreign intruder, or someone closer than we realize? Share your theories in the comments below. And if you want more true crime mysteries from across Asia, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for the next case.